ITIL Foundation 2011 Overview, Part 2. Here are the 5 lifecycle stages of IT service management: service strategy, service design, service transition, service operation, and continual service improvement. Let's look at service strategy in more detail. You can see that there are 2 ways of looking at it. You can look at it as a linear across the bottom, or you can look at it as this circle, this continual circle, and it starts with service strategy in the middle. The goal of service strategy is to define the perspective, position, plans, and patterns that a service provider needs to be able to execute to meet an organization's business outcomes. It's like putting on binoculars and looking into the future. That's what service strategy is all about, defining what do we want to be when we grow up, what do we want our company to produce. So how does it start? Let's say we want to provide a service to sell to a customer. We're a startup, so we become a service provider. And that customer can be internal or external. That means they could either be a coworker within the same company, or they could be outside our company. And the difference between customer or user is simply the customer is the one who actually writes the check. And then we provide outcomes. Now sometimes it might be a platform, it might be an application, it might be a product, but whatever it is, we call them outcomes. And those outcomes must have value. Value to the customer. What does value mean? It has 2 very particular parts. It must have utility. That means it's fit for the purpose it was designed for. And it must have warranty. That means it's fit for long-term use. And to do that, we negotiate a service level agreement. This is an agreement between the customer and the service provider saying this is what we're going to provide. There are 3 main service strategy processes. If we were a startup, we're going to need a product to sell, and that is service portfolio management. And that includes 2 parts. The service pipeline, that's the stuff that's still in production. Those are the things that our developers are still developing. And then the service catalog, that's what our salespeople are now selling. Those are in operation or retiring. Then we have to have customers. So we need a process to manage the relationship with those customers, and that's called business relationship management. And that's between the service provider and the customer. This isn't just a salesperson. This is someone who's embedded with that customer and knows the customer intimately. It may take 1 or 2 or even 3 years to find out what they need so that we can actually build it and give it to them. And then the third thing that we need if we're a startup is money so that we can produce all these things for our customers. And so that's financial management process. And that includes accounting, which is the money that we've spent, how are we spending it, and budgeting, that's money that we have yet to spend, how are we going to spend that. The RACI model matrix is a way of showing the roles and their responsibilities within the project. The R stands for responsible. They do the work to achieve the task successfully. Accountable, there's only one person that's accountable, and that's the person who has ownership of the project. Consulted is the person who provides some information for the project, and they serve as a subject matter expert. And then informed are stakeholders who will be affected by the outcome of the project. Usually they're high up, like the vice presidents. The outcomes of service strategies, lots of them, but the main outcome is the service charter. This is a document that contains details of a new or changed service. It's passed on to the service design stage where a new or modified service design package would be created. The second stage is service design. The goal of service design is to design IT services together with the governing IT practices, processes, and policies to realize a service provider strategy. This is the person who gets out the paper and the pencil and the tools and designs what it is that the service strategy team said they wanted. This is going to be a new product. Now remember, it has to have 2 components. If the customer finds it valuable, it must have utility and warranty. So there's 2 sides to the processes. On the utility side, the fit for purpose side, is the design coordination process. This is making sure that the teams are working together well. The service catalog management process, remember these are the products that are being developed and those who are in operation. So we want to make sure that it's the process of building that catalog is working correctly. The service level management process is the person responsible for the contract and making sure that we're doing what needs to be done. The contract, remember, is between the IT service provider and the customer, and the goal is to ensure that an agreed level of IT service is provided for all current and future IT services. But there's two other components as well. There's the OLA, or the operational level agreement. This is between internal groups. And so an SLA is strictly between the customer and the service provider, where OLAs are between the teams, the different processes working to make the product happen. And then there's also contracts or underpinning contracts, and those were with vendors. So we want to make sure that the pieces that we need to be able to provide to our customers are available to us. And then the four sides of warranty, they always go together, and it's important to learn them together. And so let's say that our service is email. And so it's easy to think of warranty based on if we're providing email. For example, we would want to make sure it's available. That's the availability management process. So that if I turn on my computer, whatever that computer looks like, I have the email available to me. Then I need capacity. I need to make sure that I can have as much email as I am willing to pay for. That's capacity. Continuity is, yes, I know sometimes you have to take the service down, and I get a notification that service will not be available Sunday between 3 and 4 a.m. But it also means that if it accidentally goes down, if I have an outage, that it can come back up quickly, so I don't lose a lot of business. And then security is to make sure that people don't access it when they shouldn't access it. So those four components always go together in warranty. A great tool to use in the design stage are the 5 aspects and the 4 P's of service design. The 5 aspects follow the letter STAMP, and it's a way to remember it. The only problem is that the M and P are turned around. So if you look at the solution, the tools, the architecture, the process, and the metrics and measurements, that will ensure that we have a complete and thorough project plan. Also, if we look at the people, the process, oh, there's process in there twice. It's that important. We want to make sure that the process works. The products and the partners, and make sure that all of those are ones that we've used before and we can use them, we know how good they are. Then using those 4 P's and 5 aspects of service design for the development, deployment, and delivery of a stable, usable, and supportable service that the customer finds valuable. Here's a way to remember: utility, value, and warranty. They're all at the end of the alphabet, UVW. So value is made up of utility and warranty. Also, we're going to use service reporting. We have to make sure that our SLA, our service level agreement, is monitored. And usually you'll do that with colors, like red, amber, green, or red, yellow, green. So if something is in violation, then it's red. And if you're building a service, then you can also see, are we close to deadline or are we over deadline? The outcomes for service design, again, there's a lot of them, but the main one is the service design package. It defines all aspects of an IT service and its requirements through each stage of its life cycle. It's written out so that we know exactly what we're building. And then it goes into stage 3, which is service transition. This is where we actually build it and prepare to launch it into the service operation environment. The goal is to ensure that new, modified, or retired services meet the expectations of the business as documented in the service strategy and service design stages of the life cycle. And all the processes are before you flip the switch, before you're ready to turn it on and turn it over to the customer. We want to make sure there's a change management process. In fact, this is often considered the most critical and the most, when it's not used, that's when you have the most outages. Service asset and configuration management, that's where you look at the assets that you have, all the technology, and make sure that they work well together. Transition planning and support, making sure that it's ready to move into the live environment. Change evaluation process, are those changes appropriate? Release and deployment management process, this is where you actually write the code, if that's what you're doing to develop it, and making sure that it's ready to be deployed. Validation and testing, that's when you make sure that it's going to work before you actually deploy it. And then knowledge management process. Knowledge management is knowledge overall, and that includes knowledge that's in your brain, for example, and so you might have ways of bringing out that innovation. That knowledge management is over everything, and then within that is the configuration management system, or CMS. That includes your portal and what you put behind your portal, and that is your configuration management system databases. The service transition outcomes is early life support. At the end of the deployment and before the service is fully accepted into operation, you want to review key performance indicators, service levels, and monitoring thresholds. This is a tiny little baby, a newborn. You wouldn't put that out in the world. And so you want to make sure that it's ready to go, that it's robust and ready to survive.